your cell phones, and we'll call this meeting to order. Y'all had a chance to look at the minutes?
Motion to approve minutes as presented.
Second.
Okay. All right, Bruce made a motion to approve, Marianne to second. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, citizens' communication. If we have any citizens wishing to communicate with us, you would come up at this time, state your name and full address. I don't see any, so yes, we'll move into our action items. So, William Charles?
All right, so the first item on the agenda tonight is a variance to section 21-82A1 and A2. These require a lot size of 6,000 square feet and a minimum lot frontage of 50 feet for each single-family residential lot, as well as a final plat approval for Tanglewood Plaza Re-subdivision Number 2. The subject property is located at 108, 110, and 112 Missy Lane, near the intersection of Missy Lane and Sam Houston Drive. The property is a 0.413 acre tract of land. The vacant property is going to be developed into 3 single-family residential lots. The variance would allow the owner to waive the minimum 6,000 square foot lot size requirement for only one of the lots, and waive the minimum lot width requirement for all 3 lots. The City of Victoria Code of Ordinance requires 6,000 square feet in the 50-foot lot. 2 of the lots would have a 6,052 square feet lot size, and the third would have a 5,891 square foot lot size. As well, one of the lots would have 45 feet in width, and then the third lot would have 49.39 feet. Staff recommends go ahead and go forward. As you all know, with variances, they are required to meet the following criteria. Staff recommends approval of the variance request, as the property could facilitate 3 single-family homes, but without variances, it would only be allowed to be subdivided into 2 single-family residential lots. Tanglewood subdivision has a mixture of different densities, and subdividing this tract into 3 single-family residential lots would not be out of character for properties situated in Missy Lane. Other properties on Missy Lane include townhome-style developments. The proposed lots are large enough to accommodate single-family homes, even after the building setbacks lines are established. Additionally, if the Plan Commission approves of the variance, development staff recommends approval of the final plat subject to City Council approval. If the variance is not approved by City Council, the plat will be considered denied as the variance is a condition of this approval.
All right, we'll open up to public hearing. Anyone wishing to address this would come up at this time. There is no one here, so we will close the public hearing. Deliberations, questions?
I have some questions.
It looks like we'll be getting some more of these, though, as they develop that little area.
Yeah,
That's what I was thinking too.
My question is if we don't approve it, it's looking like, one of the conditions is just the financial hardship. What would be the problem if they make it into 2 lots, other than financial hardship, they sell 2 lots versus 3? And along those lines, if each one of those tracts of land gets developed, there's gonna be a variance on each one of them as they develop them? Or is it the same owner? Are we going down a rabbit trail here that we don't wanna go down?
They're different owners. There was another, this is not an unusual variance for us to have. And let me explain that a little bit. We've had several infill lots, like in the downtown area, where folks have done a patio home lot, which would be 0 lot line on one side. That allows you to go down to a 4,000 square foot lot with a 40-foot lot width. So this exceeds that. But there's a provision in the code that says you have to do 4 of them. This is 3. So we've done this variance in numerous places downtown, and we did a similar variance like this. I can't
We
remember
did
the
one
street.
like this in
Tanglewood,
Tanglewood.
another section of Tanglewood
yes.
to the
Yeah.
east of
down on
this.
Maplewood, I think,
Maplewood. I
at
think
the
so.
end, yeah.
Well, and you can see the lot below is already developed with something that is actually a higher density than what
Right.
they're proposing. So it's definitely not out of
I went and looked at it, and I'm just curious, as they develop it around, is this just gonna be something we're gonna be faced every single time as it's developed?
Well, it's different owners, and I don't know that there's tons of development pressure in this area. It would be nice to see these lots all developed because they have been in existence for quite a long time, or Missy Lane has. So that's a lot of infrastructure that's not currently being utilized. So, but we don't have a crystal ball, so we can't really answer that with it being different owners. This current owner obviously does not have control, and so therefore has no plans to develop the rest of the property.
And on a plus note, you'd have 3 properties on the tax rolls as opposed to 2, so.
And I guess I don't
Density.
feel like the hardship is based solely on the cost of complying with the regulation. I think that it would be a reasonable use of the land to divide it into 3 spots, given the area.
Don't approve it, the only setback is they sell 2 lots versus 3.
But it's in favor of the city development, it's density, which we want, so it's pro-density, so, you know, we like to
Well, I
have that
understand, but I'm
density
just
in that
saying,
tax base.
one of the criteria is it's not solely based on financial hardship. It is based solely on financial, not hardship, but financial gain. They sell 3 lots versus 2.
I don't, Bruce, I see your, I don't know if it's necessarily saying that. It's saying solely on the cost of complying with the regulation. There's no cost associated with the complying with the regulation, right? I see your point, 3 versus 2, no doubt about it. I mean, there's definitely a financial loss for the owner.
That's not solely. I mean,
Why else would they want to do it?
because it obviously easily can accommodate 3 single-family homes, it looks to me like.
And it may just make a better financial investment decision instead of doing 2.
It's financial at that point. That's the only thing I wanted to make sure that we were
We've gotten.
That's
basing
another
our decision
criteria
not
for our
on
vote.
density. Density is not part of this criteria.
Well, but this says it's not based solely on that one. Like, it meets clearly all the other 4. In particular, like, unique circumstances, just the way it was platted originally. I'd be in favor of adopting the variance.
It's gonna be difficult for there not to be a financial, there's often a financial component of nearly every variance. I mean, sometimes there's
Yeah.
not, but, so,
This property could be developed
It could be developed
without
as-
a variance, period.
Correct.
Yes?
yes.
Okay.
Correct.
I brought up the financial thing in the past. I felt,
But it could be developed without a variance. Legally. Full code compliance. Difference is they sell 2 lots versus 3. And 2 larger lots, maybe bring them more money. I don't know. But that's the only thing I'm looking at is the cost of complying with it. There is no cost other than they lose the sale of a 3rd lot versus only 2. And it could be developed compliant.
I think it could be developed, Bruce, if somebody's willing to pay enough money for the property. I drive by there every day and it's not the
Yeah.
greatest place in the world.
But I mean, that's
Glad to see somebody
irregardless of what
willing
we're
to
saying,
do
but I'm-
something.
It could,
Yeah.
that property could be developed compliant with current code, with 2 lots. No variance needed.
Or even leave it as 1 lot.
That's all I wanted to ask.
All righty, do we have a motion?
I move to approve as
Second.
presented.
Julia moved for the motion, Mary Ann seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor, say aye. Opposed? Motion carried. And we'll move on to final plat deliberations.
Okay. So this month we had 3 minor plats come in. Um,
Don't we need to,
Oh,
Need to
sorry, my
approve the
bad.
final
That was
plat,
me.
right?
Sorry about that.
Oh, okay.
I jumped ahead.
We have a motion to approve the final plat.
so moved.
Discussion? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
Sorry, I was eager to get to my turn.
I am too. I like this middle section here.
Yeah. All right. So this month we had 3 minor plats come in for the Variance subdivision, Yellow Rose subdivision, and the Northgate Tract subdivision number 1, reset number 2, reset number 1, as well as a major plat for Tanglewood Plaza re-subdivision number 2. Additionally, we had we had 4 single-family residential homes. This is down from 10 this time last year. We had 0 new commercial construction, which is down from 1 this time last year. We collected $81,615 in permit fees this month, which is up from this time last year of $39,173. Y'all have any questions about those? Next part, Julie will take.
Since we had a very light agenda tonight, as well as the fact that we have so many new members on the commission, we thought we would take the opportunity to do a quick training for the Robert's Rules and Orders, which is, of course, the procedures that the commission uses to conduct its meetings. So it's going to be really quick and easy. Disclaimer, I am not an expert on Robert's Rules of Order, but I have utilized it for many, many years now, so hopefully I can do it some justice. So it's pretty easy. There's a theory that Robert's Rules provides common rules and procedures for deliberation and debate so that everyone has a voice and is speaking the same language. It ensures that the minority voice is heard, but the majority wins, and it, as a rule, should always help and not hinder business. And if it's ever hindering business, then maybe it's a time to do training or suspend the rules so that a body can move forward and get some action. There are 2 classes of rules. One is the general rules, which are commonly applied, and then special, which are particular to an organization. So in a little bit later, I will go over some bylaws. So any procedural rules that are in the bylaws would be special because they are specific just to the City of Victoria Planning Commission. The 10 Commandments of Parliamentary Procedure is that the organization is paramount as opposed to the individual. So everyone on the commission has a voice. For example, our chair is a voting chair. He has just as much voice as the secretary or vice chair or any member on the commission. All members are equal. A quorum must be present to take action. And I should also note that Texas Open Meetings Act does have some conflicts with the general Robert's Rules of Order. And so we, of course, as a public body, must comply with the Texas Open Meetings Act. So in our case, if a quorum must be present to take action, but we also have to post notification of a quorum, post the agenda at least 72 hours in advance to comply with the Texas Open Meetings Act. So there's a few little differences that I will go over as we go through the presentation. Only one main motion or main proposition can be on the floor at a time, and only one member can have the floor at the time, so we don't have a shouting match when we're deliberating. We must have full debate on all questions unless otherwise prohibited because of the type of motion or if you've already voted to suspend the rules or things like that. The issue and not the person is always under discussion. The Robert's Rules is very helpful in making everyone's voice heard and keeping everything very professional so that we can have good, lively, interesting, germane discussion. A question, once decided, cannot come back before the same assembly in the same session in the same form except by use of a reconsideration motion. So you'd have to motion to reconsider an item. And a majority vote decides unless a greater majority is required. For City Council, there are certain actions that require a supermajority, but in looking at it through our bylaws earlier, for the Planning Commission, a simple majority carries all action. So in this case, you just need a majority. And then silence gives consent. So to introduce business, of course, we use motions. So a Bain motion is a formal proposal that certain action can be taken. And we're going to go through the steps of obtaining action on making a motion. So first, you address the chair, and then the chair would assign that member the floor. Then you, of course, make the motion, and then another member would second the motion, and then the chair would take that opportunity to state the motion so that everybody is clear on what you're voting on. Then you move into the debate, and technically by Robert's Rules, the maker of the motion always has the privilege of speaking first in that debate. The step 7 would be you then put it to the question, you take a vote after debate is complete, and then the chair announces the result. So the motion carries or the motion fails. So these are some little extra reminders. If you don't want, you don't have a second, and you don't want to debate, then you just, this is one instance where silence does not give consent. So to second a motion is to agree that it is worth discussion. So if you don't want to consider it, you don't say a word, and then the motion would die for lack of a second. There are also several types of motions. So the main motion would be, for example, your main motion you just voted on tonight would be to approve the variance. Secondary motions, there's several different kinds. Subsidiary is they aid in disposing of a main motion. So, for example, if someone chose to condition a variance to one lot needed 46 instead of 45 feet in width, and you wanted to make some kind of condition to that main motion, that would be a subsidiary motion. Motions also, you have to remember, they go up and then they come down. So if you have a main motion on the floor and then you start adding secondary motions, you have to dispose of the secondary motions before you can vote on the main motion. So in this case, you would vote on the amendment and then you would vote on the main motion. Privileged does not relate to main motion, but relates directly to the members of the organization. And that's typically if you're assigning, say, for example, Greg in the previous variance had a conflict of interest and had to recuse himself, you could then vote to elect a temporary chair for that one item of business, and that would be a privileged motion. Incidental motions are ones that relate to conducting the business. So if you wanted to postpone deliberation of that variance to another meeting, that would be an incidental motion. And basically, then you have the motions that bring a question again before the assembly, so a motion to reconsider. To go through kind of what it means to amend a motion is a motion to modify the wording and within certain limits the meaning of a pending motion before the pending motion itself is acted upon. Again, a majority vote at all times, even if the main motion were to require a greater majority. A member may amend their own motion. A member's vote on the amendment does not obligate their vote on the main motion. So you can vote vote in favor of placing conditions on a variance and then turn around and not vote for the variance, and that's completely your prerogative. It cannot reject the main motion, so you can't be tricky and try and insert not. It obviously has to make sense and be germane to the main motion. And the rejection of the motion still leaves that main motion on the floor when you're talking about amendments. And the adoption of the amendment does not adopt the main motion. So you continue to have to, like I said, if you work up the ladder of motions, you have to work back down until that main motion has been disposed of and there's no more motions on the table. Some good general norms for debating. To debate is the discussion regarding a motion that occurs after the presiding officer has restated the motion and before putting it to vote. A member should speak no more than twice on the same motion on the same day. These are very strict General Assembly type rules. Again, Robert's rules should help business and not hinder business. So in our forum, we have such a small group and we are deliberating some important things that maybe it's not realistic to limit your comments to twice on the same motion at the same meeting. So in this case, I feel like that may hinder business and not help it, and so we generally don't follow. But strict Robert's rules, a member should speak no more than twice on the same motion on the same day. No member can speak a second time as long as another member is requesting to speak for the first time. The maker of the motion has the right to speak first. All remarks should be limited to the merits of the subject immediately before the assembly. So again, it needs to be germane to the discussion or motions. All remarks should be addressed to and through the chair. Personal remarks should always be avoided, and you shouldn't question the motive of members. And then a member may not speak against their own motion. However, you can vote against it. Commonly misused motions would be to lay something on the table or to table. because of our posting requirements, the technical, the best way to handle it technically would be to actually make a motion to postpone something to another meeting. So then the public has the notice that you're going to be picking it up another meeting. We're directed to put it on the agenda. But, you know, city council does occasionally use the lay on the table. But I think in our case, we should try and remember to postpone it to a meeting specific because of the Texas Open Meetings Act. And then to make a motion to call the previous question is a subsidiary motion, and that ends debate. So a lot of people will make a motion to call the question. It's really, I'd like to make a motion for the previous question, and that basically says that the motion that's on the table has to be voted on and ends the debate. So there are different types of voting methods in Robert's Rules. Our Planning Commission bylaws does specify that we will have a voice vote or a roll call vote. So we have general or unanimous consent. If there's no objection, you would have to break in and say, I object. Otherwise, it would be unanimous, general consent. Voice vote, which is what we typically use. Rising vote, which is a standing vote. Rising counted vote, and this is very useful in a very large assembly. Roll call vote, in which you would go through and say, you know, Michael, how would you vote? John, how would you vote? And go through a roll call. And then secret ballot and proxy voting we will never do because it is not allowed by the Texas Open Meeting Act. Majority just means more than half of the votes cast. If a vote ends in a tie, the vote fails. And 2/3 vote simply means that at least twice as many votes in favor of the motion than there were against the motion. And there's, I think statutorily or by state law, there's several things city council, or maybe it's by our charter, that city council has a supermajority required, but we don't follow those same rules. We don't have anything that requires. And then some quasi-judicial type boards, such as a board of adjustments, may have a supermajority requirement. Again, we have a set of bylaws that do kind of play into Robert's Rules of Order, and then are also just a good reminder. It does say that Robert's Rules will govern our proceedings. Voting method is a voice or hand vote. Oh, sorry, I was mistaken. Affirmative vote by majority of members present required for approval or denial of an item. Conflicts of interest should be disclosed prior to the meeting starting. And again, there's a lot of state law regarding conflict of interest, and I believe everyone has taken a training on that. And then it also outlines what our absence and meeting requirements are. Just some closing thoughts, that the parliamentarian does not make the rulings. They are an advisor and makes no decisions. May give an interpretation of a rule, an opinion on a rule, cite a rule, but never rules, and it should be applied with common sense and courtesy. And I'd be happy to answer any questions y'all may have. And if you're very interested in this, we can have Will send out the PowerPoint presentation so you can study it at your leisure.
I'd like a copy of
I actually
it.
kind of would. Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
Only one
yeah,
interested.
thank you. Good job. I
Yeah.
appreciate that.
Helpful.
All right. We'll adjourn at this time. Y'all have a good evening.
Don't need one.
You don't need one. Don't need a motion to adjourn? Yes, y'all are free to go.